All right. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show, Jess. Um,
Good
it's
morning.
good morning. I'm really excited to learn from you. Um, we just recently just found out about connected. And I'm really glad that we did. And yeah, tell the audience a little bit about your bio and how you got started and what got you in the insurance business.
Sure. I was, I was recruited by a friend. She was, her name's An Nguyen. So shout out to An. She was a State Farm agent, right? And one day, my buddy was like, "Hey, Jeff, remember you talking about State Farm?" I was like, "Yeah." And then he was like, "I have a friend who just started at State Farm and she's doing really well. You should look at State Farm." I was like, "Okay." So long story short, I sat down with An over lunch. I just invited her out to lunch, and she told me about her journey. I was like, "Well, you had no experience. You know, how'd you learn the process? How'd you learn the business?" And she just told me she kind of like dive head first in, and so that was the introduction to the insurance world.
When was
And
this?
this is back in 2005,
Oh, okay.
2005. Yeah, this 2005.
Well,
And
before
before
we get
that,
started
actually,
too, I want to let my audience know who we're talking to here. uh, so skip forward. I just want to, establish some credibility in the magnitude of the guests we have here. How
sure.
big was your book of business when you sold it?
It was $27 million in total premiums, and it was based out of Virginia and Maryland.
Wow,
So I have 5 locations.
that is amazing. And then did you purchase some to get it to that size or?
Right. So we purchased about 11 million, and the rest was built organic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so let's go back to the story. So you were talking to her around 2005.
Yeah. And what's funny before that, I'll go a little bit more in depth. So I had a business, kind of like Fast and Furious. You
Okay.
know, it was an import performance shop, and rims, wheels, turbochargers, superchargers, motor swaps, and
Oh wow.
I had that for 6 years. And the scene kind of really died down in 2004, 2005. There was a lot of break-ins, a lot of thefts, a lot of vandalism that really damaged the business. So at the time, I wasn't having fun anymore, and I went to my business partner. I was like, "Hey, you know what? I just want to get out. Do you want to buy my share?" And then he was like, "Yeah, that's cool." So I sold my share, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a top secret clearance. I didn't go to college, and I was kind of lost.
Hmm.
So I was always into cars, and I wanted to buy a car, and I just had a really, it was just like a impulse thing, right? And I had a really bad buying experience on buying this car,
Hmm.
and later on, I told the salespeople, I was like, you know what? If I was selling here, I would be much better at what I do than some of the guys here. Fast forward, long story short, I went to work there, and I met a gentleman named Lee, Mr. Lee, and he was Korean, right? So he told me I resemble of himself of me, and Mr. Lee was like, you should get out of the car business, and I said, why? I'm doing really well at the time. I was on pace to make 6 figures
How old were you?
because I was 25,
Okay.
and even though I didn't enjoy the business, but I was good at it because when you're in sales, you can work hard and you can reap the rewards, right?
Absolutely.
And Mr. Lee was like, I see a lot of guys who come in here. Everybody had to fill a credit application when they buy a car, and here is a couple career industry that are really successful. You know, life insurance sales, PNC insurance sales, insurance agents. After they work hard for 8 years, they can really build up a nice book of business, and they can really play a lot of golf. Mr. Lee was into golf, but I wasn't. He
Hmm.
was like, this is what some of my top client make, and he was the round number that was pretty big number. Like to me, remember I was 25, and At that point, I never really made more than $50,000. And he was like, they were making 500,000, 700,000. I was like, wow, right? So
Yeah.
that was what started the journey of me looking into insurance when he was telling me some of the top guys in the game, what they were making, and they was making money on residual income
Hmm.
back in 2005. And then fast forward a couple years later, I met on and just started looking in the insurance world. And when I look in the insurance world, I applied with State Farm, I applied with Nationwide and Progressive and Allstate. And I actually got rejected for the top three, the first three. And State Farm rejected me after 3 interviews because I had a short sale on my record in 2008. I went through a divorce at the time. And then with Nationwide, and I didn't get a call back. With Progressive, they said go sell captive for a couple of years and then work for somebody else for a couple of years on the independent and then come back and fly. And I applied to Allstate, and I met this gentleman, Dwayne Crupper, and he was a great guy. We hit it off. And he was like, he started helping me working through the cash flow, and he was like, you need to have this much money. And I was like, ooh, I definitely don't have $50,000. So next thing you know, I worked my butt off for 3 years to save up 100,000.
Wow. Where was
And
what were you doing? S-
selling cars, I
Selling
was
cars.
just
Okay,
being real
gotcha.
frugal. Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, before I got divorced, I was living in a 7,000 square feet house, and I had 3 refrigerators. M3 convertible, like have a Lexus truck. So, just living like a lifestyle that I was definitely spending more than I was making. And then
Wow.
afterwards, I knew what I wanted. Right, I want to save up money. I want to be debt free.
Yeah, but it took you a
And
lot of humility to downsize, huh? To
oh
save that
yeah,
money.
so I was renting a house. I was living room of 10 by 10, right? So this room size was about 100 square feet, and I was making like over 100,000 at the time. But I was living with 3 roommates, and then all 3 roommates was all divorced. We became like a support system for each other. But I used that opportunities to get out of debt, to save up the money I needed, and then open the first shop. And 3 years later, I called Dwayne and said, "Hey, Dwayne, I got the money. I'm ready."
Wow. So just getting started in the insurance business, you already had to pay your dues and grind and work hard, but you had
Yeah.
that goal. So you already knew that's what you wanted to do. And so when did you actually start? What year was that?
Funny story. Allstate advertised in Inc. magazine at the time. Magazine was still a big deal. People buy magazines. And then there was this one advertisement that says, it had the Allstate branded logo. It had a little glass office. And then on the glass office, there's a glass door. And then on the glass door, it says your name here.
Okay.
So I ripped that little page out and I put it on my wall in my
Oh, wow.
room. And every day, every day I get up, I go to sleep, I will stare at that. And it was like a little motivation. So
For sure. To have a
yeah,
goal and to see it, look at it every day, that makes you kind of
yeah,
like keep you disciplined because saving money is not easy.
it
Uh,
is. It is not, especially when you are around people who live fast life, right? Like people just want to like worry about today.
you're right.
So
Especially if you're into cars too.
yeah, it was a habit. It was an expensive habit. People hooking up cars. So there's two of those habits, right? Well, at least for most of my friends, like cars and guns. If you're into any one of those habits, it's like a black hole. Your money just go in and get drained and never come back.
Yeah, it's the
So
opposite of putting money into a business.
yeah,
So you guys started with Allstate, and tell me about the early years. How did you start off? Were you a hot agent from the beginning, or um,
no, I wasn't. So what's funny is I was really good at internet sales and car sales because I work really hard, right? I was putting 9 to 9 every day, 6 days a week. But when I went to insurance world, it's completely different. I had to relearn it. Like you learn a lot of new things because, when you sell cars, you live in somebody else's box,
mhm,
right? Marketing is done for you. payroll is done for you. You're just sitting there to operate on rails. You have one job and learn to do that job really well.
Hmm.
When you open a business, um,
It's a
forget
lot
about
more
doing
than that.
anything well, right? Just learning itself, like, and choices, like I'm opening payroll. Okay, which payroll company do I use? I'm opening an office. Okay, how do I negotiate the lease? My negotiate of a lease probably wasn't as good as it could be. I ended up paying my first lease $2,000 a month, and probably blew my budget a lot just on decoration. Bought a lot of things that I thought was cute, but it didn't make me any money. You
Hmm.
know, but because we all have pride in our beautiful vision, right? So to take pride in that beautiful vision, you have to insert money into it. So definitely a lot of learning curve throughout the whole process. And the biggest thing for me is I was fortunate enough to have two people who want to join my vision. They both came with me from the car business days,
Okay.
and they burn out. Car business days, a lot of
Yeah.
hours on weekends, weeknights. You're away from your family, holidays, and they were both burned out from the car business, and they all took massive, huge pay cuts to be where they want to be in the insurance world and to join me in my vision. Um, so that was probably the biggest thing. And then from early on, that was a learning lesson for me that people make the difference.
Absolutely. So did they join you as far as like they became your employees?
Yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah.
that's
They
huge.
became they became my employee, and they set the perimeter of what they want to do. And but at the same time, like we were all trying to figure out what we're good at.
Hmm.
So I knew what I was good at was sales, but I realized very fast what I wasn't good at was leadership. What I wasn't good at was hiring. What I wasn't good at was recruiting. Um, Even though I can sell the vision, sell the dream, but you ever heard of the Rudy syndrome?
Rudy,
Yeah.
the Notre
You ever
Dame.
seen the movie
Yeah.
Notre Dame movie Rudy? Okay.
Hmm.
So the Rudy syndrome is you see the best in people. And let's just say you come into my office for an interview and you can give me one red flag, two red flag, and third question, I'm like hesitating to even ask you because I don't want that third red flag to come up. But you say something like, I'm a single father, or I'm a single mom. And then now you start tuckle at my heart, right? Where you saying like, I really want the job. What employee doesn't want to hear employees say something like that, right? And then the Rudy syndrome kick in where I only started looking for the best in you versus the other things, the distractions.
Hmm.
And in the early stage, I hired a lot of people who I really saw the best in them. I was like, you know what? Even though you have all these flaws, even though you have all these other red flags, but I am Superman and I can develop you into what I'm visioning you could be. Um, Same thing with like NFL draft and NBA draft, right? Everybody see the potential in somebody, and sometimes they overlook all the other things who are warning signs. So
Yeah. No, I have the same. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean because sometimes as business owners, we like to be very optimistic and positive, and we kind of like see somebody and look at the positive side or think like, hey, this is going to
mhm,
work out. But it is really important to look at things objectively and look at all the data and make, choices rationally rather than like just emotionally. So I know what you mean. Like when people have cried in interviews or they just want to work. So they're like, okay, well, your ego is saying like, oh, someone wants to work for me. So you just like makes those type of decisions. So those are, yeah, early lessons I've learned too.
yeah. And then the second lesson I learned was never hold yourself to a higher number. Because when you hold yourself to a higher number, like if you're thinking, okay, I need to bring my business plan is the next 3 months, the next 6 months, I'm bringing one on board. When you have that one, depends on what kind of personality you are. Some people are checklist personality, right? Like if you're the type of guy who never have a single notification on your iPhone anywhere, now your email, now your text message, now your missed calls, then you become a checklist person. You want to just check things off, right?
Hmm.
And then if you say I have a hiring goal of just one, then a lot of time you just go along with it to hit that one goal. Or sometimes you're like, okay, I want to grow aggressively. I'm gonna go hire three. And then you just say, okay, I'm just shooting for the number three. Then it become you're trying to fit a square into a round hole, consistently chasing a number versus consistently chasing the right person,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have the right person, they will pay for itself. They will pay for their own overhead. They will pay for their own expenses, and it will not set you over your budget, your cash flow, and yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Um, I fell victim of that too because sometimes, as a business owner, one of the things that as goals, I want to have a certain amount of employees, and that becomes like a huge goal. But
Hmm.
sometimes it's not the quantity, it's the quality of them.
Yeah. I
So
have seen so
yeah.
many shops, I have seen so many shops where two people, three people all sell another shop that have seven or eight or 10, this it's not a quantity.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. One good one is sometimes worth, so much value than four average ones. So
Yeah. And
um
then it's fun to be around them, right? When you have
mhm,
quality employee, they really become the extension of your business. They become an extension of your representation.
mhm.
And it's just so much fun to be around the right people. Um, Life
Yeah.
gets fun, business gets fun. It become a passion.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing that I definitely look for too when I'm recruiting is to try to find people that I enjoy working with. So that way,
Mhm.
you go into work enjoying working with the people, then it just not only is it fun, but it also leads to better production too.
What's your non-negotiables when you're walking to an interview? What's our three non-negotiable for you in your head?
Would I just as simple as would I like working with this person?
Hmm.
So even if they're skillful or have previous experience, if there's something that I just, if they have a likability, coachability, I think that's important for me too. Um, Likability, coachability, and I think, wow, you know, hu- well, humility is pretty similar to coachability, but that's mine.
Hmm.
What about yours, Jeff?
So I read this book called Delivering Happiness, and I just go
Yeah,
back to the story of this book.
Tony Shea, right?
Tony Shea, yep,
Yeah, rest
and
in peace.
rest in peace. And
Great book.
I'll say used to do the thing called the National Forum, which is really a great thing where they invite the top 10, 15% agents based on their results to an event, a national event, whether it's Vegas, whether it's Florida. And we sit down at functions and we attend classes. And you know, so usually 2 day event and they put up 27 subjects: how to sell life insurance, how to sell annuities, and how to sell new business, how to run recruiting, blah blah blah. 27 different classes, and each classes is taught by a panel of speakers of 3 to 1 to 5.
Hmm.
And at the time, one of the things I struggled with the most was scaling my business. And because I had 3 employees, I was on the sales side, and we were kind of stuck. We were kind of stuck around like 100 policy a month, right?
Hmm.
And I was just going through revolving door on hire number four. Number four was like the hardest barrier for me to break. And so I went to this thing, and instead of they want you to register for about 6 class a day. So you're there for 2 days, you're gonna attend 12 classes.
Okay.
So what I did was I went to the first class, and the first class was hiring, recruiting, culture, and they have 5 panels on the speaker floor, and some of them had 3 employees, some of them had 10, some of them had 12, right? And I listened to the first one for an hour, and then everybody leave. 40 people in the room, everybody leave, and then there's 10-minute break, and then the presenter, she was like, "Class is over. Are you lost? What's your next class?" I was like, "No, I'm gonna stay here again."
Is
She's like,
that
"What do you mean?
valuable, huh?
You just attended the class?" I was like, "Yeah, but the next class is 5 different people to come in here
Uh-huh.
to talk again. If I can get hiring, recruiting, and culture right, I don't give a F about the other 26 classes.
Wow.
Like you can really be dumb at a lot of things. You can be a weak business owner, a weak leader. When you have strong lions in your organization, they will help you blemish all your flaws. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said in the beginning you were great at sales but not a great leader, but so that's a skill that you really focused in on and a strength of definitely now, would you say?
I would say it's not, I am not where I want to be, but
Really?
I am working on it as a progress. I am a work in progress. Um, because that leadership thing actually go into every aspect of my life as a father,
Hmm.
as a husband, as a business owner, as a leader to my team. Um, Probably had to do with patience because I am such a self motivator. I I am an engine of my own wheel, right?
Hmm.
So I know how to make myself go. I know how to make myself run. I know how to push myself to an edge that most people are uncomfortable with. But I cannot do that with everybody.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, somebody walking that door, it's not their name on the door.
Yeah.
If that business go broke, it's not their liability,
Right.
right? And at the end of the day, they came in here to feed their family, and just little things like that to remind me of myself. And so being a leader is a constant progress. I don't think there are many born leaders. I think there's a lot of leaders who grew over time, and they sharpen their skill set through over time. And leadership is 3 things if you want to be a good business leader. One, I break it down in simple terms, right? Like one is the pillow,
Hmm.
one is the hammer, and one is inspiration. And so the first part is pillow. When somebody fail and they get ready to quit, you have to be there to hold them together,
Mm.
sympathize with them,
Yeah.
understand, hey, I've been in your shoes. I've been in those rejections. I've been in those failures. I had those bad months, right? That's like what I'm thinking more in terms of the pillow.
Hmm.
As far as the hammer, if someone say, hey, you know what? I know your schedule is 9 o'clock, 9 to 6, but I'm gonna be there at 9:10. Today is traffic. Tomorrow is traffic. Tomorrow, the day after, my baby dad didn't show up on time. Okay. The day after that is, you know what? I had to stop by Chick-fil-A, right?
It gets worse and worse.
You know, it just
Yeah.
it just at the end of the day, there are rules and process. If you work here, if you sign your name to work here, you step up to the process that we have, the rules we have. You don't come here at 9 o'clock. You come here at 8:55, right? And also, like you say, you want to devote to this business, to this job, to this career. We sat down and we built a business plan for you of how many calls you got to make to achieve call time, because call volume it's just a gimmick, right? It's a gimmick to get to the call time. At the end of
Mhm.
the day, you're burning 2 things: either you're burning their call time or they're burning your payroll.
Mm.
So, you know, and if they're not achieving what they said they ought to achieve, can you be the hammer and lay down accountabilities? Because a lot of business owner, they're usually soft. They're like,
Yeah.
well,
Or
you
sometimes
can
they're
do
too hard
3.
too. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean,
But
I've seen some
I think
business owner going
yeah.
hardcore.
Yeah, but that's such a great that's you have to have the soft skills and the hard skills, empathy.
Yeah,
You have to be soft, and then you have to hold them accountable.
timing.
What about the inspirational part?
Pick your battle. You ever heard of a guy named Robert Kiyosaki?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, of
Okay.
course. Come on.
In his most selling book is called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he said, "Power of the gold, power of the sword, and power of the mirror." Right? He who hold the gold write the rule. He who hold the sword make the uh, own the rules, dictate the rules. He who hold the mirror can understand themselves and grow further. Right? So the number 3 is inspiration. You cannot inspire others unless you understand what inspired them.
Mhm.
So you don't just look into your own mirror. You have to figure out a way to have them look into their mirror and understand what button to press, because you got to understand what inspired them. you'd be surprised that most people don't want to be millionaires. Most people don't want to be billionaires. Most people just want to come to work and be happy. And you got to understand what that happiness to them is, and then figure out a way to inspire them on them wanting that happiness versus you say, hey, I want this for you. No, you don't. I mean, if that's never what they want, then you just push the wrong button. And pushing the wrong button happen every day, right? Like I would say 99% of us push the wrong button. Pushing the right button is rare, but when you do push it right, it's effective because then they are become their own rails. They chase their own goal, they chase their own success, they chase their own whatever that inspired them.
That's what being a good leader is all about. Man, there's so many good points you just talked about there, Jeff. I mean, that is so valuable. And it kind of goes back to the way you started, talking about leadership is to um, lower your expectation a little bit, when it comes to like staff members, is that they're not going to be as motivated as you. You're not going to be, the name is not on their agency is not their name. The compensation is different too,
Mhm.
so obviously they're not going to care as much as you. And that's,
So I wouldn't say lower your expectation. That was not a word I'm trying to look for because some of the best leaders I have met, they figure out a way to raise the expectation for other people
mhm.
so they deliver the high results. Like your results is your expectation. I go into an interview with three non-negotiables, and I got this from the book Delivering Happiness from Tony Hsieh. Um, that's where I wanted to go to because I heard somebody on the speaker panel of hiring, recruiting, and culture talk about Tony Hsieh a lot, right?
Mhm.
So I went back and started reading Zappos story. I went back to start learning about Tony Hsieh. I went back to start reading the book Delivering Happiness. And I think one part he talked about, like, the three non-negotiable that he has is, will he go to lunch with this person?
Mhm.
And that became, I just stole that. That became one of my negotiable. And then, will he have a drink with this person? And will he trust this person with his kids? I can't remember if that was from the book or that was from one of the speaker, but that became my three non-negotiables because I look at everything we do every day with our work, employees, office manager, sales manager, they become essential our family. We spend more time with them than we do with our own children, our family. So, those things that will make us gel, make us insane, gotta be there, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are, and so you building a team. How many employees did you get up to with that big a book of business that size?
Our last year in the captive world was 2018, and we did about $10 million of new business annualized. So, and that was probably my best year ever. Like the year before that, I did about 3 million. So actually, even less than that, probably 2.4.
So you
So
quadrupled.
we really leaped.
So you have to have a lot of sales staff to write 10 million.
Yeah,
How many employees
we
was that?
uh we had about a total of 40 employees.
Yeah, 10 million in premium. It's
Yeah,
just new business.
just new business, and that was my best year. And tons of learning curve. I mean, this would be a 2 hour podcast if I start to talk about all the things I went through that year alone. And and you know, in the captive world, the opposite world that we went by items. So for
Mhm.
example, if you have three cars, one home, one umbrella, that's considered 5 items.
Right.
We were always hovering around 135 to 150 in the early stage. And that was the case when we had one office. And then when we had second office, we actually didn't improve that much because I was in two places. And we were around like 150 to 180. And I had a weird barrier, and that barrier was 200 items. But once we crossed that 200, things just click and we have process down. We slow down to build a process. And I remember one of my biggest change was I went to visit this agent in Pittsburgh. I have so many things built in my head, but they were in my head. They wasn't in other people's head.
Mhm.
And when I went to visit this guy, he had everything written down.
Mhm.
He didn't just have everything written down. He had split up written down. So player A, player B, player C, they all play a role in the organization, and he empowered them. And on the way back, my operation manager, she was like, from now on, you relinquish this control to this person, this control to that person, and you teach them how to do your job. The vision of once we get back home is if you're out of the office for 2 weeks, this place doesn't miss a beat.
Mhm.
And also, you're not going to talk to customer anymore. The only thing you're going to talk to is potential hires to make this place go. So I had one job after that, and that sole job was just to hire, recruit, and interview. And literally, I was doing probably about 5 to 10 interviews a day. I had other people recruiting for me and just setting me up, loading on my calendar for interviews.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
My
bec-
operation was completely handed off. You
uh-huh.
know, she was running 8.5. I say half because we had one person that was administrative, and she didn't have license. She was like a frontline receptionist,
Mhm. Administrative. Mhm.
administrative, yeah. And then the other 8 people was all licensed, and they were just servicing a book of business that was 27 million. And we had really low premiums in Virginia, so it was high policy count per premium, right? And we had about 155 AES score. AES score was a measurement they used to measure of outbound touch. You know, we had a process for 1 month before your renew kick in that you get a touch.
Okay.
We had a process that you get a touch on your accident follow up 3 days after your claim starts. You know, we had a process for everything. You know, everything. Every time you miss a payment, we had a process not just to take your payment, but to follow up with you after your payment to make sure the payment went through.
And
We
everything
have
and everything was written down.
Yeah, everything was written down. Everything was
Mhm.
automated, and everybody knew their role. It was run really well, like a well machine. And our AES score was what they're using based on measuring customer service satisfaction. It was the highest in the capital region for an agency our size. So,
Man, a lot
and
of organization. What about
yeah,
marketing? How did you was it internet leads or what was your
it was 100% internet leads, 100% click to calls, 100% live transfers. It was centered around those three categories. So
another two
we
hours
uh
we could talk about?
we we try everything. I mean, like I have thrown my money away so many times on different things. I even tried newspaper, and
Mhm.
when I tried the newspaper, it was all non-standard calls, and I was like, whoa, right? For some reason, that's all we were getting, and yeah. So and then we just decide, you know what? I can't be trying 7, 8, 10 different marketing schemes.
Uh-huh.
I got to be good at something. You cannot be
Right,
good at everything if you try everything.
right.
So, at the end of the day, I look at data is the most important thing. If I buy internet leads, I might not sell right away, but I have that data and I can
Mhm.
go back over and over again and try to sell to the same prospect, right?
Mhm.
Versus like direct mail versus radio ad versus newspaper. Those passive things sounds cool, but it does not work. At least didn't work for me.
Same
And
here.
it was unmeasurable skill set. It was unmeasurable marketing, and I couldn't invest enough money into unmeasurable marketing.
Mhm.
So we wanted to focus on internet leads, and we got really good at it. And then the next step was, there's always somebody out there. If you're in the insurance world, you always get somebody in your LinkedIn inbox, email, somebody call you, another lead vendor, another media company trying to sell you another form of advertising. We get one a day, two a day sometimes. And we started going into live transfers and we start going to click to calls. And, for anybody who buy live transfers and click to calls, you understand, your team would definitely understand. That was a day that somebody. You ever seen the movie Leonardo DiCaprio with the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah.
And he it was one scene that first they were smoking weed, and then he took a line of a coke, and
Uh-huh.
then he had that moment. So you know, click to calls and live transfers is so addictive because you get that instant connection with your prospect, and instead of waiting follow up, you're on the phone with them instantly, and the intent is 100%. I want to get an insurance quote.
Because they're
So
calling you, right?
yeah,
That's
and
already
then
biased, you know.
once you feed your team the funnel of click to calls and live transfers, be careful what you wish for because it's really hard to go back to chasing internet leads all day long.
Mhm.
So, you know,
It's so much better when they're
uh,
calling you than us calling them.
yeah, I was doing pretty well on the internet leads. We had a good decent return. And once we started feeding our folks click to calls and live transfers, it was over. Like nobody wanted to touch internet leads, nobody wanted to follow up. Everyone just like having their hands on the
Pick up the
phone, trying to
call.
be the first one. Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to be the first one to pick up the click calls, the live transfers. I get it, it's easier, but if you're buying leads, you understand this too. Like those are super expensive lead purchases versus internet leads.
Absolutely. So did you like only feed it to like the top agents and the new ones at the internet leads, things like that, or you
What's
just
funny is the top agents are always on the phone quoting and selling, and it's always the lower volume production producer that's sitting around doing nothing, and they just want to pick up the leads. My
Mhm.
best producer pick up 3 versus my lower end producer pick up 10. I mean, it was just the way
Wow.
it was.
Wow, that's interesting. But
Yeah.
man, talk about the marketing budget. I'm not sure if you want to
Mhm.
share a little bit of that, but I mean, I think sometimes it's good for us agents to understand like, you know, what it takes to grow a business that big
Yeah.
and to kind
I
of
mean,
stretch our to think bigger, you know? So,
yeah. So our first book we built was $4 million, but it took us 4 years to build the 4 million.
mhm.
And along the line, I've had to borrow another more credit card to, keep it going, to buy more leads, to keep the credit line going. And then the second agency, I knew that I went to the first agency with 100,000. I wasn't prepared because yes, I could hire two, three, four, five people with 100,000, but there is a margin of error that always happens. If you want to five people, you probably have to hire 10, 15, 20 people to get to five people.
Right, yeah.
So 100,000 doesn't allow you to hire 20 people. It doesn't give you the margin of error. So my second scratch agency, I went in and I borrowed against my book. I did a business line of credit against my book, and I pulled out 250,000. So we got off at a faster growth pace than the first one, but it wasn't what I envisioned. We grew to $3 million in 3 years on the second book.
So these are just separate locations and they have separate
Right.
premium amount. Okay.
Yeah. And then that was the whole time I was just in Virginia. And then a buddy of mine says, "Hey, I want to move back to Delaware. You know, I have a office in Maryland. It's $11 million premiums. If you can get a loan for it, you know, I'll sell you my $11 million book." It wasn't a cheap sale. It's 3.5 multiple of the revenue. And
Wow.
I end up looking at the expense cash flows and I made the purchase. Purchased that book of business in January of 2017 and grew that book to 13 million in the next 2 years on the 10-10 model structure that we had at the time. It was interesting because it was in Maryland. It was a different state. I made a lot of sacrifices driving back and forth. Um, the last book was probably one of my more successful books. So the fifth office I built was a scratch agency. I built it up to $7 million in total premiums, but um, my first 5 months I built up to 5.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, were these offices very far from each other, or?
They were all 10 minutes away from my house, except the Maryland office. Maryland
Oh,
office was
really?
about, yeah, the Maryland office was about 2 hours from my
Okay.
house. But I wanted agency in Maryland because, Maryland premium was much higher than Virginia. Virginia is the 50th cheapest auto premium in the country and 42nd cheapest home. So we were like on the losing end on both sides. And Maryland was significantly higher in premiums. So
That's incredible how you just grow these agencies so fast. I
yeah,
mean,
I mean, we pushed the pedal down. Like there was a lot of time that people took money for themselves, right?
mhm.
Like, we all like the finer things in life. Like, I know that you like Jordan shoes, right?
Yeah.
Jordan retros. I'm a fan of Jordan retros,
Oh, yeah?
just random things like that, right? Like
Uh-huh.
cars, house. A lot of my friends, they had like Ferraris. A lot of my friends had like um, BMWs, Maserati, just fancy stuff. And I really didn't have any of that fancy stuff. I was renting in a townhouse that I found on Craigslist. That the rent was 1,400 square feet townhouse for $1,800 a month. I was sharing a bedroom with, like, I was sharing a townhouse with another guy I met on Craigslist, and I just live an incredibly simple lifestyle, right? Like on my
Mhm.
weekends, I didn't go out to the bar. On my weekends, I spend time with my son. I was, divorced, but my relationship with my son's mom is amazing, and you know, I was just living a simple life, and whatever money we had, like, always was reinvested back into the business. So, I didn't buy things that was a debt cash flow. Everything I purchased, I had a rule: it got to be purchased for cash flow.
That's really from Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Shout out to Robert. Once you read the first book is a foundation book, but the really better book is the second book, Cash Flow Quadrant.
Mhm.
The taxes, the structures. You know, it's very easy to read. It's not hard. It's not complicated. It's not like gonna make you a millionaire, but it's a foundation to a lifestyle. People become successful. People become well off. People become rich, all based on discipline,
Yeah.
right? And cash flow quadrant is about a layout of discipline.
Yeah. It is about discipline. And talk to me a little bit, Jeff, about, and we talked about a little bit about, our backgrounds, our culture,
Mhm. Culture,
and yeah, your work ethic, your discipline. I think these are things that as, Asians, we could be proud of.
right? So first of all, let's just address the elephant in the room. There's not many Asian insurance agents, right? Like
Especially in Virginia,
minorities
probably.
in general. Oh, especially in Virginia, but minorities in general between African American, Asians, Hispanics, you know, a lot of things in the insurance agency world, it's a legacy thing, right? It's a great business. So you hear a lot of things like grandfather passed on to father, father passed on to son, first generation, second generation. When you listen to like podcasts or like open a magazine like Rough Notes, and you're constantly reading generational wealth, generational business, second generation, legacy. That's all you hear, these words. And then, we as immigrants, usually our family members came into this country with a skill set, with a trade. So like restaurants,
Mhm.
like cleaners, like nail shops. That's some of the business you see Vietnamese, Asian, Chinese, Koreans. They specially focus in, right, with Japanese. Insurance usually not one of them. Not life insurance and not P&C insurance. So that's one thing that have already taken out. So, and then also I would say the corporation structure. Like if you look at the recruiting structure at any of these massive companies like Liberty Mutual or say State Farm, not often you see the people who are in the recruiting world is loaded with minorities. I would say in the last 2 years when Black Lives Movement became a front and center stage, the recruiting of diversity becoming a bigger thing in the corporate culture. So once you put a emphasize in hiring diversity people in your corporation, and then you get the results of having insurance agents who are women, minorities, veterans. There's a lot of veterans out there who are well off financially, very disciplined, um, and make great entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then let's talk about women, for example. If anybody go on your business page, your Facebook page, they see that you have an office for women, right? I remember somebody told me the study number that 65 to 70% of employees on the agency force side, sales manager, office manager, CSR, salespeople, are females, and less than 10% are agency owners who are women. And then of those numbers, less than 2% of those 10% are scratch agency owners. I mean, the number is really like wild.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah. So, what have you? What has helped you? You think overcome those obstacles? Because sometimes we don't have the resources, um, but I guess we have the work ethic to build the skills, huh?
Yeah. I would say just resilience, right?
Yeah.
Resilience. And my parents, they really did not want me to go into my own business. So I had a car shop, I had a, insurance agency, and they were against it all actually. They wanted me to go to college. College degree was a big deal in the Asian culture. I would say it's a big deal in all the cultures, but in the Asian culture, if you didn't go to college, you're like the black sheep.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I say to myself, I was like, I had this conversation with my parents. You guys came to a country you did not know, language you didn't speak, left your homeland, left your friends, left your family to go take the biggest risk of your life to go to a country for better opportunity. If that is in your DNA, if that's your personality, you don't expect me to imitate it. So the greatest form of imitation for me will be me choosing to do something I have never ever done and take a risk and build an opportunity for myself. And what they don't realize is it's not ever what they tell us, it's the example they set for us.
Yeah.
So if our parents came from a world of taking the biggest risk, I think it's normal for them to expect us to follow their footsteps and just take risks.
Yeah. And their risk magnitude is probably way bigger than 10 times bigger than ours. And
Way,
sometimes
way bigger.
parents, I think, out of love and trying to protect, they want us to go the safer route. But sometimes those safer routes are the most riskiest, actually. So taking risks, I agree with you, is sometimes a safer route. Um, and then like they did it for you, like you want to take risks and do things for your kids too. So um, I think that's why a lot of immigrants end up being entrepreneurs, because
Mhm.
the risk tolerance maybe is a little bit higher.
I mean, look at the Jewish culture. What they faced in World War I, World War II with the Nazi Germany. The things that they faced was incredible. It was unimaginable. I watched this YouTube video yesterday that in Israel they had a moment of silence for remembering the Holocaust, where it was like a siren going off for like 10 minutes, and everyone just standing in the street, with their head bowed down and just remember the Holocaust. So when they came into this country as immigrants, they brought their trade, they brought their skill set, they brought the little storage of value that they had, whether it's gold, dimes, or whatever, and they built business here. And then they're very strong as a culture together, right? And so sorry about that.
That's all right.
They're very strong as a culture together, and they're united.
Hmm.
Um, and look at where it got to them today. You see some of the biggest name in Wall Street, hedge fund, attorneys, litigation offices are all people of Jewish descent, right? These Jewish last name. Hollywood, how many Jewish people are in Hollywood? Now they have the strength of culture influence. and they have the strength of capital control is because they went through something so drastic, unimaginable, that made them resilient people. You can never underestimate the strength of resilience, the survivalism.
That's so true. Sometimes, yeah, that's what makes you stronger, and it's the same thing with us agency owners. Those challenges we go through in the early years and not giving up is what makes us, achieve what we're able to do later on, is going through those challenges. And sometimes, if everything's handed to you, you're a little bit softer or entitled, and you don't have the hunger to keep building even after you get off to a certain level. So the one of the big questions I have, Jeff, I mean, you build a huge 10 million in 1 year in new business. That is just absolutely mind blowing. It really helps me stretch my imagination. I really appreciate and acknowledge you for just how that happened. And this could be another topic maybe we should save for the next one. But man, what was it that caused you to, if you don't mind sharing, make that decision of selling your book of business and starting Quantum?
I would say that is something that we can go on for another 2 hours about. You know, at the end of the day, there was a lot of things that went into that bet. So, either we go into another 2 hours or we save it for another time.
Let's say for another
But
time. What about to all the agency owners that, say, okay, give us a little bit of taste of what was it like? What did it take to write that much premium in 1 year?
oh, don't look for the elevator, look for the stairs.
Hmm,
Step by step, one by one, policy by policy. Treat everything you do as if it was your last day. Everything you do as if it was your last phone call. Don't worry about the 7 hours ahead of you. Worry about the minute and the hour that's here right now. Worry about the one employee that you have. Make the best of his or her potential, and then just try to replicate yourself one at a time. Right? Bring into your organization a person that represent you, that breed your culture.
that's great. There's really no shortcuts in this business.
No, no, there's no shortcut.
So one at a
Be
time.
be ready to fall. Be ready to fall. Be ready to fall again. And just laugh at failure.
Yeah. Yeah, have fun enjoying the ride, right? It's gonna be hard either way, so might as well enjoy it. And having the humility to kind of laugh at yourself. Those are type of things I do when I reminisce. Like, I can't believe I did that, but that's kind of those learning lessons that are invaluable now. Any man, that's a great advice. I love that one, Jeff. Really, I think a lot of agents, that's really important to them. Just take it,
Yeah.
1 minute at a time, one employee at a time, one sale at a time, one client.
And I can't remember who said this. The circle of five. I'm drawing blank right now. Either Gary Vee or Tony Robbins, but they all like pick up a lot of things from each other. Look around you. Who's your circle of five? Your circle of five is your future. I always pay attention. I pay attention to more of my son's friend than my son, because I understand his friends are the one that's going to influence who he is.
Hmm.
So same thing with adults, right? Same thing when you want to have a happy marriage, are you surrounding yourself with other people, other couple who have that great strength, the great marriage, the great support? And same
Hmm.
thing with, like, you know, if you want to be a business owner, are you surrounding yourself with other disciplined, successful business owners? The circle of five is probably the second best advice I can give here.
That's so true. You know, um, Sometimes it's really dangerous to talk to other agents because if you don't have the right type of agent, with the right mindset,
Mhm.
that could really make you feel, negative about the opportunity, and that's really the last thing we need to do. So yeah, I really like to audit like who I, and that's why selfishly I invite powerful agency owners that have accomplished great things because like
Mhm.
I want to you really inspire me, Jeff, and I really want to learn how like what you did and what you're up to too, So I really value these relationships, and getting to meet you and getting to know you and how you think is going to be something that is really going to help my future going on moving forward.
I would say the last one would be expiration. Like where you go to grocery store, you see a bag of bread, right? The bag of bread that's closest to you always have the shortest expiration. And then the longer expiration are always in top shelf, bottom shelf, or all the way in the back.
Hmm.
We all have expirations and we have to know ourselves, the power of the mirror, and know how much longer we have in this game and what's our run gun days and what's our cruise control days. So know our expiration time and then make sure how we maximize the most out of the time that we have.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't like to think about that, right? But we're in the business of thinking, life insurance stuff and things like that too. So that will make you that will make you take more action. That's for sure when you think about that.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit of the audience about quantum. Most of the conversation I wanted to have is, how you grew your brick of business, because a lot of the audience is, in the captive world.
Mhm.
Just so you let us know about quantum, how could they find out more about it, and is on your mind these days with your new, venture, which is
So
off to
if
an
you want to find
incredible
out more
start.
about quantum, I would say first connect with me. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Follow me on LinkedIn and then follow me on Facebook. Connect with me on Facebook. Um, we have our YouTube channel, right? Quantum Assurance, ASSURANC, Quantum Assurance on YouTube channel. Connect with us on Facebook and LinkedIn on our YouTube channel and on our corporate channel. And we're putting out tons of contents, right? So Quantum is we want to build an agency model for the next 10 to 15 years. The independent world is so different than the captive world. People think, oh, you just go there, sell insurance with more carrots, more options. It's not really just that. It's so different. When you go into a captive world, you have a lot of box around you, bento box, right? Allow you to just be on the rail to success. There's a lot of support system that captive world put together for you. In the independent world, a lot of that structure is lacking, right?
Hmm.
And also, there's a lot of options out there from aggregators, agency networks, franchisors, franchisees, or side contracts that some of these contracts are really predatory. Like they will make your captive contract look like it's nothing. And we want to build an infrastructure for the people who want to pivot into the independent agency world, but on the real process, steps, organization, community, all these things in one. And we want to make sure, hey, you know what? This is a place that we don't build subways. This is the place we build Chick-fil-A's, right? This is the place for people who have the higher desire of not just build a one man or one woman agency, but build a business of 3, 5, 10, 20, 30 type of employees. This is the place you go to. A lot of people, when they get that best job, right? Like they get a job at Google, they get a job at Amazon, and they say, I work really hard. I went to college. I put in my time. This is my last job. I want people to come to Quantum and say, this is my last stop. This is where I build the agency of my dreams. I'm not going to wonder what's out there, what if scenario. This is my last stop.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you definitely have the vision, and you're definitely up to huge things. Listen to what your agents are doing right now. It's only
Mhm.
a couple years in, right? Or 3 years in.
We started in September of 2019.
Share some numbers.
So we started September 2019, and we have never ever written independent policy before. Our first 6 months, we did about 10 million. Our first year, we did about 23.5 million total premiums. And then June of 2020, we started our agency program, where we started a 1099 agency program. We brought agents in under our wings to mentor, recruit for them, and we brought on about 30 some agency our first 6 months, and since then, in the last 10 months, we brought on a total of 45 agencies. And some of these agencies are now averaging 150,000 to 180,000 a month, which is about annualized number around 1.8 to 2.2 million dollars in premiums. But these are some of our average agency production now. And my vision for average agency production annually, a quantum agency is going to be over 2.5 million, right?
Wow.
So,
And how
and
many
if
agents total now?
we have 45.
Or
So,
five? Okay.
our vision is not just volume. And,
Is it
I
mostly
don't
in
want to,
the your area?
I
Or
would say it's divided. It's from
mhm,
New York to Colorado. We have one West Coast agency in Vegas.
mhm.
Shout out to Justin Lober and his Vegas agency. We're looking to grow in the 38 states countrywide. Some of the major states: California, Texas, Florida, New York, and we also looking to grow everywhere, like Virginia, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio. So
So yeah, we're gonna be looking out for you. I know you guys are on to big things. So it's gonna be exciting to witness and keep in touch, and have somebody that has just bigger visions with what the insurance business could take us. So you really opened up my eyes, Jeff, and I'm really forward to doing part two, because there's just so much other topics that we didn't touch on, that I think agents could get a lot of value in. So I appreciate your time, Jeff. Hope we are able to keep in touch and learn from well, mostly me learn from you. uh,
no, I'll say we're learning from each other. Like, I've been watching your Facebook posts for a long time, so I say we always learn from each other. And I'm gonna bring you on my show because I have some questions. So we'll catch up.
okay, awesome. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm humbled for you to say that, but yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff, and we'll keep in touch. And I hope some audiences will contact you to learn more about quantum, and we'll yeah, wish each other the best and moving forward.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Have a good one.
All right.